Hey all, I want to just take this time to rave about the John Cage Festival piece thingy that I just saw. It was so amazing, and oh my god, John Cage is amazing. My favorite part, okay, so if you haven't seen John Cage, you've probably heard something similar to what he does. Basically, what John Cage does is I can't exactly say that he throws stuff on paper because he has a sort of a method to his madness. He has very particular things that he says for his people, his players to do. And that's really what they are. They're more actors than like players. Okay, so it's more like to me, it's more like performance art than um, a concert. That's the feel was more concert, or the feel was less concert and more performance art. Um, and that was okay because of the type of things that he does. He has just the notes or the rhythms or whatever it is written on that paper, and he doesn't say what instrument it's for. He doesn't say, well, depending on the piece. Um, and so you can interpret it in a whole bunch of different ways, but it's still got that underlying structure to it. It sounds totally noise everywhere, um, but really what he's talking about is what is noise versus what is music. And I'm sure that you've all heard at least something that's kind of copying Cage's style of what is noise, what is music. Like, for example, before this, I watched a TED Talk. I very much recommend you go on TED.com, but that's a different story. I saw a TED Talk about um, this composer who was also playing with the what is noise, what is a performance, what is sound. Well, not really what is sound, but what does sound mean? Um, and in his, he had a florist, like with flowers, like making a flower bouquet. And that was this new composer, that wasn't John Cage. Um, but that's very similar to the whole Cage thing, the experience that I just had. It was very, shall I say, spiritual, but then it wasn't. Okay, so let me explain that. um, Sometimes it moved me personally. It made me angry, it made me happy, most of the time happy. It made me upset, most of the time happy. Um, and so, yeah, there's that. But then sometimes I didn't feel anything. I was just like, this is kind of silly. What's going on? It kind of lost me. But the great thing about John Cage is that's kind of the point. Okay, here's the brochure program thingy that they had. Cage, it's his 100th birthday, and that's the main reason that we're having this festival. Thank you for living or dying 100 years ago, or living 100 years ago. Yeah, 100th birthday. So, being born 100 years ago, so that I could see this my first year of college. That was awesome. Thank you, John Cage. Or, well, thank you, John Cage's mother. So, this has been going on all week. I haven't been going to everything all week because, oh, because the, there's been a lot of stuff going on, you know, normal school week. And so, but there's like the first performance, second performance. Today was the fourth. And so it was titled Concert About Nothing. And so when I say that I felt nothing at certain parts, that's okay, because that's what it's supposed to be. Okay, so the first part is Nothing Suspended. That was a visual art installation inspired by Cage and Cunningham. Cunningham is the person that the choreographer that Cage worked with oftentimes. Um, and that was the very beginning that kind of told you that something was going to be different here, because it was basically just a recording of this person just kind of talking. I couldn't quite hear what it was about, because like every now and then I would catch snippets of words, but it wasn't quite loud enough to hear the specific words. I'm sure that if I listened harder, I probably could have, but there was also this awesome light display thing going on up above. Yeah, and then I think probably my favorite movement, it's a toss-up between the first and third. Well, the three movements are called Nothing of Pitch, Nothing of Meaning, and Nothing of Words. And so the Nothing of Pitch they played mostly on wooden instruments, and it was pretty to me. But it, the main performers were Third Coast Percussion, and they're very exact in the way that they play. They play very exactly, which is good for John Cage, and bad for him in other ways. It's good because, well, he has a lot of structure, but it's bad because it's kind of the mess-ups that make his pieces, if you know what I mean. They showed this one clip of John Cage talking about how a cough in most normal performances is seen as kind of an interruption. Oh, how rude, they coughed. But then in John Cage's pieces, he embraced that. The baby crying, the coughing, the random cell phone ringing. Well, not in John Cage's time, but apparently earlier in the week somebody had a cell phone go off at an opportune time, and that was actually part of the concert, which I found really cool. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool, and so I'm just kind of rambling into my camera about how cool it was and how it made me feel. And it made me feel a lot. Actually, I haven't. Okay, so I was kind of a weird little kid. I would find myself feeling very spiritual at certain times, and like, we went to this place that's supposed to be a nexus of energy or a vortex of energy or something like that. And I would like get very spiritual and feel the vortex of energy. I was one of those little kids. Well, actually, you see that more in adults, but still, the weirdo adults that are feeling it so much. But I did that when I was a kid. But it made me feel that way again, which was pretty awesome in some ways, and in others, I have a lot of things where in some ways it's awesome and in others it's not. The way that it was awesome is that, well, it's a very strong emotion, and I haven't felt that way in a long time. So I want to thank Third Coast Percussion and all of the composition students and everybody for making me feel so much, and that's awesome. It's not so awesome because I found myself telling myself things that sounded like they should be profound, but then when I thought about them the next second were really not profound at all. And then there were some things that were actually pretty profound. I mean, like, there was the 3 layers to it. You could see it. There were the light displays and the colors and the performers. You could hear it, of course. Well, not of course. There's apparently a piece where it's just silence. The pianist opens the piano sits there for a set amount of time, and then closes the piano. And apparently that's a piece. But in this case, you could hear it, all the little shufflings of the feet. There was, yeah, there were a lot of times where there were coughing, and especially after we saw that clip of Cage talking about coughing. Let's see. And then you could feel it. They had some things where they were jumping, and it was all four of this percussion quartet just jumping at the same time. And so it made this loud boom, but it also, the entire floor went down and up. It was so cool. And part of the seeing, which made me the most happy, was looking around at the audience. There was this one point where everybody was touching their ear, and I am having ear problems lately, so that was kind of natural to me. But there were a lot of other people around the room touching one ear. And then in the third act, Nothing of Words, they were doing a lot with hand drums and things like that. And there was this one part where everybody was touching their head. Like, there was one person like this, one person just like scratching, one person just resting their hand on their head, and then of course I got really itchy up there because I was seeing everybody touching their head. But yeah, just like all around the room, the audience was just touching their head, and I don't really understand it. I don't know if it was supposed to invoke the emotion that would cause one to touch their head. But it did, and it was kind of cool to see. I think I've said this a couple of times, but the best part to me was when I felt the emotion so much, and then I didn't. And that was okay, because it is a concert about nothing. And so I felt it, and then I didn't.